Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's podcast. We started a little bit earlier today. Well, technically, we're right on time. So, very nice to see all of you. For those of you who don't know me or recognize my face, I'm Lario. I'm a counseling psychologist in private practice, and this is my weekly podcast where we talk about interpersonal dynamics and relationships, especially post rehab or post discharge from a recovery center. So, apologies. Don't know what's happening here with my computer. So before we jump into the topic today and to discussion, I just want to do a quick introduction message just so that everybody who's watching knows exactly what this is about, and if they want to know more or receive more resources, that they know where to find that. So welcome to the MyRehab Cafe video podcast. The MyRehab Cafe private and unsearchable Facebook group is the aftercare branch of the MyRehab Group of Dual Diagnosis Addiction Centers, or ARC as it was formerly known as. The MyRehab Cafe or the MyRehab centers are private inpatient drug and alcohol rehab centers that offer high quality healthcare with high quality outcomes. The MyRehab Cafe Facebook group has exclusive access to loads of content that isn't available on any of the MyRehab public channels. Some of the content includes workshops, lectures, and support groups hosted in conjunction with some of the treating providers at the MyRehab inpatient centers. These treating providers are psychologists, social workers, wellness counselors, and volunteers who have extensive experience in the field. Group members also participate in movie and book reviews and from time to time face-to-face interviews or face-to-face events. If you aren't a member of the MyRehab Cafe, you are likely watching this on a public channel. This means that you will have about 10 to 20 minutes with us and access to this live broadcast before we switch over to the exclusive, private and unsearchable MyRehab Facebook group. Remember to sign up and join the MyRehab Cafe, guys, as this is where the interesting part of the live videos happen. The MyRehab Cafe is free to any person that have been through the MyRehab inpatient process. If you haven't been through the inpatient process, but you want to find out how to join the MyRehab Cafe, please check out the MyRehab Cafe website, which is www.myrehab.co.za. So that's www.myrehab.co.za. If you want to participate in this workshop, please join us via video or audio via the link in the comments section, or leave a comment and I should be able to bring it onto the screen and I can see what we can do about answering any of those questions that you might have. If you are a MyRehab Cafe member and you want a higher degree of anonymity or confidentiality, please wait for us to end the broadcast on the public channels before hopping on or posting. And I'll make the announcement when we're switching over. So with that, let's get started. Last week, we spoke about boundary setting, specifically using the tool called an I statement. And we mentioned and said we were going to talk a little bit about how to set emotional boundaries. However, that is a topic I'm going to leave for a different day. The reason being is I feel that I do need a guest in the studio because there is quite a lot of role playing involved in those specific tools. So it would be better to have somebody in studio which I can actually illustrate and show specifically how everything is or how it works. So today we are then rather going to look at codependency. I know that we have touched on it a couple of weeks back, and we went more into enmeshment and controlling behavior in relationships. So today we're going to look at different types of codependency, the ways in which family roles shift and change after or in active addiction. Yes, and then it's this is more of an informational worksheet. It doesn't have as many tools and tips, but that we will look at then next week. So I will ask Kirsty then on the other side just to bring the worksheet up for us. It's quite a lengthy one, so I'm going to skip over certain parts so that we get to the actual parts that we have to work on. So as you can see, it's a lecture workshop, and it's, like I said, called codependency. What we first start, before we get to the codependent roles, we're first going to start looking at the family dynamics in addiction. So I'm going to read off of the worksheet. There is one or two mistakes that I picked up on the worksheet, which we will iron out and change a bit of the wording. I had to type a bit quick, sorry about that. But then, like I said, from there, you guys will get the gist of it. So it says there, what happens to the family when addiction becomes part of it? So when addiction starts forming in close-knitted, when it starts playing a prominent role in the family, what actually happens? So it says there, family where, and then it's the word addiction, not addition. So families where addiction is present and oftentimes painful to live in, which is those who live with addiction, may become traumatized to varying degrees by the experience. Broad swings from one end of the emotional and psychological and behavioral spectrum to the others. It all too often is characterized or characterizes the addicted family system. Living with addiction can put family members under unusual stress. Normal routines are constantly being interrupted by unexpected or even frightening kinds of experiences that are part of living with a possible addiction issue. What is being said often doesn't match up with what the family members sense, what they might feel beneath the surface, or what they might see play out right in front of their eyes. I'm going to change the wording here a little bit just to say the substance user as well as family members may manipulate and deny reality in their attempt to maintain a family order that they experience as gradually slipping away. So the entire system becomes absorbed by a problem that is slowly spinning out of control. Little things become big, and big things get minimized as pain is denied and slips out sideways. So technically, the introduction is basically just illustrating to us that addiction has quite a vast impact on a family system. It's not just one aspect or one small effect on the family. And I think I often say to the patients, even for themselves, they would often not have possibly even attempted to come to rehab if substances only affected, let's say, a person's health or maybe a bit of your finances. It's generally that people really get to a point of desperation and an attempt to really want to get help because they feel extremely overwhelmed because every aspect of their life have become affected by the substance. So much the same, I think, for the families as well, is it's not just one aspect of the family that gets affected, it's all the aspects. Dusal, thank you for your comment. I see you watching. I appreciate it very much. We're not always sure who's on the other end or who is actually watching the podcast, so it's nice to see that somebody's watching. Sorry, Kirsty, you moved without me watching. If you can maybe just go up so that I can see. Okay. So the a tense family atmosphere or the emotional disconnect. So they say here, families have remarkable abilities to maintain what family therapists calls a homeostasis. But when alcohol or drugs are introduced into the family system, the family's ability to regulate its emotional and behavioral functioning is severely challenged. So I always do a quick activity with the patients where we do a bit of a bowl throwing activity. and the point of the activity is that there should be rhythm and there should be predictability and consistency, because the moment somebody changes the pattern or changes the rhythm, then everybody is confused. And I think families work like that as well. They do rely on a level of predictability and consistency. On the radio the other day, I heard the radio DJ ask people to phone in to say what is their rituals in terms of food. And several people phoned in to say, on Friday nights we eat pizza. On Monday nights, we do meatless Mondays. On Wednesday nights, it's wacky Wednesdays. So that creates a sense of safety and security in the family, because everybody knows what to expect. There's not these constant surprises or these constant changes in the family system and in the family routine. And I think that's exactly what they're saying here, is that once substances are introduced in the family, then there isn't much routine, there isn't much security or safety, because there is a lot of, or there might be a lot of unpredictability at the end of the day. Then they say the family will, and sorry again for me diverting my gaze to the screen, but I can't read. I need to look at a bigger screen. So the other screen is on my left-hand side, so I need to look there every now and again. So it says the family will generally reach as a unit to balance itself. So basically the family as a unit is trying to reach a form of homeostasis or balance. However, and the worksheet refers to drugs at certain points and alcohol to other points. I'm just going to generalize it to substances. So in an addiction home, this might become a dysfunctional sort of balance. Family members can become almost consumed by the disease to such an extent that they lose their sense of normality. Their life becomes about hiding the truth from themselves, their children, and their relational world. And I think that's very important, because I think addiction is somewhat draining. It takes a lot of energy, not just from the person who is finding themselves in active addiction, but I think from everybody around them. So it takes a lot of energy to have to cover up certain realities or having to avoid certain people because we're afraid of having to reveal the truth. And I've often heard this from family members where they would say, I'm finding myself struggling to remember all the made up stories or the lies or the cover ups for the extended family or the workplace or the friends, because we don't want everybody to know what the situation is. But that means that we all kind of have to be on the same page all the time, and we have to think of different ways of spinning the truth or the reality, so that everybody, is said on the same page. So I think that can become quite draining at the end of the day, and it takes, like I said, a lot of energy. Trust and faith in an orderly and predictable world can become challenged as their family life becomes chaotic, promises are broken, and those that they depend on for support and stability behave in untrustworthy ways or manners. So obviously, this worksheet really focuses kind of on the extreme form of active addiction, so I'm not saying that somebody who's in the beginning stages, because the worksheet will also say it's a progressive disease, that everybody will be able to relate or identify with this. But I think majority of the people would be able to say somewhere along the line, there was a lot of empty promises. There was a lot of trust that was broken. Things did become quite chaotic. And like they said, that it becomes difficult if a system needs to function together if one party can't necessarily be relied on all the time. And I often use the example to say, if the person, let's say, that is struggling with the addiction has a responsibility like dropping the kids off at school, it seems like a small task, but it can have quite a lot of repercussions. At the end of the day, I remember when I was still at school, they used to give detention or letters, or they even used to use tactics of embarrassment by having you stand the whole seminar through or the morning ceremony. So that can have an impact on the children's self-esteem, their sense of security. It obviously has an effect on the other party, because then generally the other parent or guardian needs to step in. Maybe they need to be at work early or have a long drive to their work environment, and they now need to bypass some of these plans in order to be able to accommodate to take the kids to school. So I think there's lots of different examples in terms of where the person that might be in active addiction, the family feels, "Yoch, but there's certain things I desperately need to rely on them for." But if they're absent or they're not in a position or a state of mind to be able to really follow through on those commitments or responsibilities, they need to, like I say, bypass it to somebody else, or they themselves have to consume or assume that responsibility. Then they say both children and adults in the family may lose their sense of who and what they can depend on. Because the disease is progressive, like I said earlier, family members seamlessly slip into patterns of relating that becomes increasingly more dysfunctional. And those are those codependency roles that we will talk about a little bit later. The children are often left to fend for themselves, and anyone bold enough to comfort the obvious disease may be branded as a family traitor. So, at the end of the day, it's not to say that all children are left completely to fend for themselves, but I think small things can maybe fall through the cracks, where a child would maybe naturally ask for help or reach out. The child might feel, the system is already a little bit shaky. I don't want to add anything unnecessarily, so I'm just not going to ask. And I've often had those examples where in family sessions or so, the one parent would mention it's come to their attention that their child didn't ask for money for the tuck shop, or they didn't inform the parents that there was a school trip, or they lost their jacket or their jersey and they didn't even let the parents know, so they were freezing cold at school. And then when the parents say, "But why didn't you just come to us?" the child might say, "But you seemed very preoccupied or already under a lot of stress due to whatever is happening or needs to be taken care of in terms of the addiction." So like I said, it's not necessarily saying that to the most extreme form they have to fend for themselves in the basic things, but that can also be. But sometimes it's even the small little things that falls through the cracks in terms of that. And then, like I said, they said that the person who's bold enough to comfort the disease may then be branded as a family traitor. So the family splits. It's kind of like an earthquake that splits the family into different sections, where some family members might be very empathic or understanding, and then other parts of the family might say, "No, there is no excuse, there's no explanation. At the end of the day, we're not going to enable it at all. This person should now be on their own or fend for themselves." And the other individuals that might be more understanding or empathic, then kind of they start turning against one another. And that's sad sometimes to see, because then, like we said, everybody kind of gets pulled into this type of dysfunctionality. And then there's a lot of arguments and misunderstanding because the one is covering and the other one is kind of trying not to enable. So I think a lot of splitting can also happen. And then they say family members may withdraw into their own private world or compete for to provide the care and comfort that is missing for each other. Sorry, I skipped a line there. Apologies. May compete for the little love and attention that is available. In the absence of reliable adults, siblings may become parentified and try to provide each other with the care and comfort that is missing. So technically, what we're saying here is the hierarchy of the family can also start to shift. So siblings can almost become the parents, and the parents can almost become, or not literally, obviously, but the parents kind of start to slip into some childlike or regressed behavior. So again, the system itself really becomes confusing for a lot of people. And then again, addiction in families may become characterized by a kind of emotional and psychological constriction, where the family members do not feel free to express their authentic selves for the fear or triggering disaster that their general feelings are often hidden under strategies for keeping safe, like people pleasing or withdrawing. So, technically, what they're saying here is that people might start to become very rigid or almost robotic because they feel as though they can't be spontaneous and open and honest and authentic about their emotions and feelings because they kind of always, apologies, have to consider how it might be affecting, impacting, or triggering the person that is struggling with the addiction. So I think that's important to consider, because if I mean, your family should be the one place where you feel safe enough to be yourself 100%, to feel like that you can be accepted and loved and validated, and you can say not necessarily whatever you like, but you can be honest and open. And I think the moment you feel that you have to walk on eggshells, or that you can't be true and authentic to what you're feeling because you're scared of triggering another person or upsetting or contributing to another person's distress, then things also become a little bit, what would be the word? I don't want to use the word fake, but ingenuine, and often then in family sessions, we start to really see the natural, true emotions start surfacing again. So I think that's important as well. So sorry, guys, it seems like our time is up on the public channel. For whomever was watching, thank you so much. I do always try to push in as much of the info as I can on the public channel, but there is still lots and lots that we're going to talk about on the private channel. So please, if you have not yet joined the private channel, I urge you to look into that. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. And then for those who are switching over with me on the private channel, I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much, Kirsty.